Hello and welcome to another Saints Live, where we'll be bringing you pre and post match coverage of Southampton's last away game in the Premier League this season as they face Bournemouth at the Vitality. And we have got loads to get through, haven't we, Kenzie?
Yeah, we certainly do. We'll be chatting all things Saints as always. We'll be having our two fantastic guests, Dean and Adam, join us shortly. And of course, we'll be hearing from you, the fans, as well. So make sure you're sending us in your comments and we'll do our best to read out as many of those as we possibly can.
And as you mentioned, it wouldn't be the same if we didn't have our regular guests. So joining us again are Dean Hammond and Adam Leitch. How are you doing, chaps? Just 2 games to go. Are you excited for the end of the season, or are you ready for it to finish?
Well, I mean, I can't believe how quickly it's gone. I mean, used to normally having the Premier League, 9 games takes about 3 months rather than 3 weeks. So it's definitely been unusual.
Well, we're not getting pictures here of Dean and Adam. Hopefully you can see them at home. We can hear them okay, which is the main thing. So we know they're on the other end of the line. Let's get straight into talking about today's game. There's a lot at stake, but Adam, is it a derby?
Well, we know it's definitely not a derby game. You knew I was going to say that.
I
and that's
did.
the only reason anybody's asked, because I always get stick for saying this isn't a derby. I mean, it's the South Coast derby. There's only one South Coast derby. We all know that. And Saints won the last edition 4-0 in September. This is just a game between 2 rivals that happen to be close to each other.
Well, Dean, I want to get your take on this then, because you played in both Portsmouth and Bournemouth games, so you know what it feels like as a player. Is this a derby?
I have to agree with Adam, really. It's definitely not Southampton-Portsmouth. It's definitely not got the same passion, the same intensity and the same build-up between the fans. But there's definitely a competitive edge. There's definitely something extra in the game, whether that's due to location, whether that's Bournemouth always been striving to be as big as Southampton as a football club. I don't know. It's not, but like I say, it's not Southampton-Portsmouth, but there is a competitive, there is an extra spice to the game compared to normal competitive games. So always enjoyable to play in, always nice to play against rivals that are close to you in location-wise. So yeah, it's always a good game.
Adam, this is the 13th time that the two sides have played each other in the last 10 years. Prior to that, they hadn't played each other for 22 years. So would it be a shame if Bournemouth do go down that fixture would disappear, or does it not really matter?
No, it would be a real shame. I think you want to see as many sort of South Coast clubs in the Premier League as possible. I think it would be, personally, think it would be amazing if we had Saints, Portsmouth, Bournemouth, Brighton, Reading, all in the Premier League. It would be fantastic. I'd love to see. Well, I know people give you stick for saying it because you name Portsmouth, but I'd love to see them all in the Premier League. It would be really fantastic for the area in general. To make it less London-centric, less Northern-centric as a league, to have the building rivalries between the teams. And that's the thing, you said, right, they haven't played each other much at all, Southampton and Bournemouth. But now that rivalry really does exist. And it's much more fun seeing them play. We saw that with Portsmouth. You kind of think, yes, Southampton are on the top, but it'd be great to see those games happen more regularly rather than once in a blue moon. So absolutely, it's difficult because obviously Bournemouth really need to get a win today to stay up. But ultimately, I think it would be better for the area if they did.
Well, Steve mentioned there that this is the 13th meeting between the two sides, and Dean, you scored in one of those 13 meetings. Talk us through that goal and the Raddy contribution to that rather painful-looking celebration.
Well, I think my back's still recovering now. I'd like to say the goal was a screamer and one to remember, really, but I think it bobbled around the box a little bit. It came to my left foot and obviously just got a good contact and it went in the corner. I know at the time it was a pretty important goal. It was an important match in terms of our promotion challenge. But yeah, celebrating with the away fans, the noise they made during the game, and then why I jumped on the floor and then, Raddy Jai body slammed me once, not just once, twice. So I don't know if I kicked him in training, maybe. He was getting his own back on me, I'm not sure. But no, it was an important game, a really good victory, and always love scoring for Southampton, obviously, and celebrating the fans. And you can see with with the players all celebrating together. It showed what a close-knit group we were, and fantastic game. And I didn't get that many for Southampton, so I always enjoyed them when I scored.
And one team that Southampton fans will be seeing in action next season is Leeds after their promotion from the Championship on Friday. Adam, are you looking forward to that fixture next season?
Yeah. I mean, they're a big club. I know it's a bit like a well-trodden sort of cliche in a way, but you want to see the big clubs in the Premier League. It's been a very, very long time. I think 16 years since Leeds were there. I find it hard to believe it was that long, really. But Ellen Road is a good old ground. It's gets a rocking atmosphere. They're well supported. Look how well they've still been supported, even while they've had lean times recently. They're a really big club, and it's nice to see them back. I think they've got the potential, if they can stay up, given the infrastructure around them and the level of support they've got, to actually re-establish themselves in the Premier League. It's not easy. I would liken Aston Villa to a relatively similar sized club to Leeds, and we've seen for them coming up, it's not been easy, despite that, to stay up. But it's great. I think it's another good addition to the Premier League. It'll be nice to see them back. It's probably a bit overdue, and I think we'll all look forward to Southampton's visit up to Ellen Road when it next happens, whenever that is, because lots of fond memories I've got of covering games there. Obviously not just in the Premier League, but when the teams were lower down, and we talked about the most memorable one, the Super Kelv game recently. I think it'll be really good for the division as a whole to have them back. Just hope that we keep some plenty of South Coast representation in the Premier League, so it's not too northern a division.
Yeah, always a good away day at Elland Road. But of course, all focus is on our trip to the Vitality Stadium today. And the fans are certainly feeling up for it. Lots of comments already coming in from you guys. Mark Pollard on YouTube has said, Ings and Armstrong to score, Saints 2-1 for him today. Thanks for your comment. Roger, hello, he's on YouTube. He says, hi guys, watching the match from sunny Orlando. Hello from a very dreary and rainy Southampton. I know where I'd rather be. Now we've got a comment here on YouTube which says, we need an Ingsy hat-trick for him to have a chance at the Golden Boot. Another comment here on YouTube, come on you Reds, let's get a huge win. That's from Saints FC Vlogs. Leo Futcher has said he's going for a 3-1 win to the Saints today. He thinks Ings will get 2 and Redmond with the 3rd. And a final comment for now from Shane. He says, I'm predicting a 2-1 win for Southampton with Ings and Redmond to score.
Right, great. Well, we'll find out very soon who's actually going to be in the Southampton lineup today. But before we get into talking about the team news, let's have a few words from our manager, Ralph Hasenhüttl, from his press conference earlier.
Yeah, I saw them playing absolutely good in the last 3 games, especially now in the last one against Man City. They did a good job. You could see it in the Man City game after they were 2 down. Suddenly they were more brave, really didn't have anything to lose anymore, and then just showed how good they can play football. And you must always be aware. I think in the last home game they also won 4-1. I think it was against Leicester. It was also a good game. So we know about the quality. It's really, for me, surprising they are that deep in the table, to be honest, because I saw them much better. I have a big opinion about their manager. And in this game, it's more about putting our performance on the pitch. And this is the goal we have. We have lost the first game against them, so we have to do it better now. And I'm sure we go there with a big goal to win.
Well, Ralph, talking about today's opponents there. Dean, is this an opportunity for fringe players, or do you think the team will go back to normal today? What will Ralph be thinking?
I think obviously you'll have to consider the condition of the players and what the effect the last game has had on them, and since they've come back. But I would like to think, if you possibly can, if the players are fresh and confident within themselves, we'll go back to the team that have set such high standards since the return to the season. The players that didn't play against Brighton will be itching to play again because, like I say, most weeks they're starting to form a real good understanding, real good partnerships. They're getting familiar playing with each other, which has shown in the results and in the performances. So I think if the manager can, he will pick his strongest team. We spoke previously, is it a derby? Is it not a derby? I still think there's a competitive edge to it, and Southampton will want to win the game to not prove, but show that they're the bigger club in the area, and show how much they've improved. So if the manager can and everything's in right with the players, I believe we'll go back to the settled team that has been playing and performing so well for this mini-season.
Yeah, Adam, Ralph said that the first half performance on Thursday was a disaster, but then did kind of backtrack on those comments afterwards. What will he have learnt from that game?
Well, I mean, potentially quite a lot, I think. I get it's difficult because you feel a little bit of sympathy for some of the guys who came into the team, because we all know it's not easy for players to just come in after a period out of the team and just pick up, especially when there's quite high expectations because of the way that the team have played since restart, that these players would just come in, some of them having not played literally for months, and be able to pick up the pace of the game, and that's very hard and demanding. But there is also kind of a flip side to that coin, which is that there are questions, genuine questions about the depth of Saints' squad and how good actually some of the guys are, and whether they're of the standard required to be kind of instant replacements if your first choice players are out. So I think Ralph will have drawn his own conclusions, because he'll probably be able to weigh up from seeing the guys in training how fit and sharp they were beforehand, and then how they performed when they came in. And with we're looking at potentially a 10-week transfer window. It's a very short time to get things done, and I think that Ralph probably will have concluded for himself that there may be one or two areas where he definitely needs to strengthen. So I think he probably would have got quite a bit out of it. And as I said, I don't want to, from the outside, judge too harshly, because I think there are circumstances. But from his point of view, where he sees the players day in, day out, I think he will have learned a lot about who he feels can do a job for him going forward, and where he definitely needs to bring in replacements or reinforcements.
Adam, you said post-match the other day, Thursday, that Obafemi can be hit and miss. How can Ralph kind of address that when giving him a run of games is probably not an option?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, Ralph is definitely, I think, he's got high expectations of Michael Obafemi. He obviously, the way he's talked about him for a long period of time, he really believes that he has all the raw attributes to be a really good player. And, it would be hard to argue with that. What Ralph's done, which I think is interesting, is he's called him out a couple of times publicly, Michael Obafemi. I haven't really heard Ralph do that with any other player, and Obafemi's a youngster. So it kind of gives you a bit of an insight as to perhaps what that relationship's like, maybe what Obafemi's like as a character. He's called him out kind of on his attitude and his work ethic, which is concerning for a young player, because you don't expect a young player to come in and have that sort of problem initially. But, that is what Ralph has said. He's on the record as saying it publicly. So he's obviously trying to address what he sees as the issues with Michael behind the scenes. There is a problem. I think that they've struggled to keep him physically fit consistently, and that has been a real issue. And that's part of what Ralph has said. I think he feels that Michael needs to look after himself better, be better conditioned, and what I would call more of a pro. You look at like somebody like Dean and the way he managed himself and his body and kept himself in great shape during his career. That's what I would call professionalism. You are a professional footballer. You can't just rely on your talent, your ability, your raw attributes. Not in the Premier League. The guys at the very top, the best players, they work the hardest as well. They're not slouches just relying on their talent. I think that's where Ralph is trying to mould Michael Obafemi in the background. While he can't probably play him every game, he's trying to get all the raw attributes supported by physical conditioning, so that maybe next season he can play more often, and then we can really find out what he's about, and he'll have a proper chance to develop.
Adam, you finished your answer, perfect timing there, because we have now got the team news. So before we talk more in depth about that, we'll bring you that now. Your Saints team is on your screen and is as follows. In goal, Alex McCarthy, Carl Walker-Peters, Yannick Vestergaard, Jack Stevens and Ryan Bertrand make up the defence. Oriel Romeu, our captain James Ward-Prowse, Stuart Armstrong, Nathan Redmond, Shane Long comes into the side and Danny Ings. Then the substitutes for the Saints: Angus Gunn, Kevin Danso, Jan Valery, Jake Vokins, Pierre Hoiberg, Will Smallbone, Will Ferry, Michael Obafemi and Shay Adams. So as always, when the team news breaks, Dean will come to you for an initial reaction on that starting 11. A pretty strong team, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm glad the manager's gone that way. I think it's the strongest team that he could pick. I like the fact that Shane Long's come back into the team. I think Shay Adams has done very, very well. He's came in, he's got his goal, he's had some performances. His confidence would be high, but Shane would be wanting to play as well. He'll be fitter now after his injury, after the break, so he'll be itching to play. And his partnership with Danny Ings, I think, is always dangerous. I think they have a good understanding. So, Armstrong coming back into the team is good as well. I just really like the balance of the team. I like the way they understand the way the manager wants to play now. The shape is an excellent shape. It's structured very well defensively and attacking wise. And the players know that now. They appreciate how the manager wants them to work, how fit they need to be, how high energy they need to press. And when they get the ball back, there's combinations between the strikers, between the midfield players. And like I've always said, you can see they've been working really hard on that in the training ground. And it's been coming out in games. So why not go back to your best team? Why not try and finish the season really, really strong to set the club up for next season? So I think it's a really, really good selection by the manager.
Alex McCarthy starts again today. Now, Adam, it doesn't seem to be a position that Ralph wants to experiment in. How have you made of McCarthy's performances and his position in the team?
Yeah, I must admit, Steve, I'm a little bit surprised, if I'm terribly honest, that Ralph hasn't had a look at any of the other goalkeepers again. That's no disrespect to Alex McCarthy, but just because he's got a number of keepers at the club a few that you could regard as first team goalkeepers. Realistically, Saints don't need 3 first team goalkeepers at the club. They don't need the wage bill taken up by 3 goalkeepers when that money could be better invested elsewhere, and you could have 2 strong goalkeepers and a young keeper like Harry Lewis. I am a little bit surprised, but maybe Ralph's just made his mind up for the time being. Maybe that's it. I mean, Alex we've talked about him before, he's very solid. Kind of the great strength he's kind of got, in a way, is that he doesn't really have many out-and-out weaknesses. You would say he's not spectacular, perhaps. He's not a really eye-catching goalkeeper. He's not, either exceptional shot stopper, exceptional kind of joining in with his feet, like an Edison type character, not exceptionally commanding, but he is good at all of those things. And he's not weak. He doesn't have a deficiency in any of those areas. So he's a very, very solid, reliable choice. Yeah, okay, there's going to be the odd mistake. Yeah, we can talk about the Arsenal mistake. There's going to be, he's playing in goal. They're going to make an error, the same as everybody else on the pitch does. But overall, very, very solid and reliable performer. So I guess from Ralph's point of view, to move away from that is a pretty brave move, because I think the other goalkeepers that Saints have got are more spectacular in some of the individual areas of goalkeeping, but perhaps have greater weaknesses in others as well. So it is more of a gamble in a way to play them. So I think Ralph maybe has just made up his mind.
Well, we've done this previously and we're going to do it again. We've made a little 5-a-side, haven't we, Steve, with both Bournemouth and Saints players. So you're going to take us through our chosen players?
I think we've got a graphic to show you of our 5-a-side team, made up, like Kenzie said, from players who played for both Bournemouth and Southampton. So in goal, we've got Artur Boruc, who played 50 times for Southampton before joining Bournemouth, initially on loan and then permanently back in 2015. He's still at Bournemouth now, although hasn't played a game for them since April 2019, which was a 3-3 draw against Southampton at St Mary's. Moving in to the defensive line, we got Nathaniel Klein, who made over 100 appearances for Southampton before joining Liverpool in 2015 after troubles with injury. He then joined Bournemouth on loan for 6 months at the end of last season. We've also got Bertrand in there. He made 7 appearances for Bournemouth whilst on loan from Chelsea in the 06-07 season. He's now made over 200 appearances for the Saints. Then got Adam Lallana in there, who came through Bournemouth's Centre of Excellence before joining Saints at the age of 12. He did rejoin the Cherries on loan briefly in 2007, but became part of Southampton's first team setup, where he made over 250 appearances before joining Liverpool. And then up front, we also have Lee Barnard. We could have had Danny Ings, but we decided we've talked about him too much. So we've gone for Lee Barnard. He scored 24 goals and 73 appearances for Saints. He then had a loan spell at Bournemouth in 2012, netting 4 times in 16 appearances. We do also have some honorary mentions as well for candidates who could have been in there. We could have had Neil Moss, we could have had Matt Mills, Andrew Sermon, and forwards like David McGoldrick and Leon Best in there too. So gentlemen, what do you make of that five-a-side team to start with?
Well, it's a good team to start with. It's a good balance, to be fair. I think you've got athleticism in Nathaniel Klein and Bertrand, and then the quality you've got obviously with Adam Lallana being exceptionally creative, very, very good on both feet, and Lee Barnard, who is probably one of the best finishers I played with in training when we done finishing practices with both feet. Very, very good. Very, very talented in that department. So a good team that I think would be very attacking. Might concede a few goals, but it's a good team.
Well, let's kind of talk more in depth about each specific player we've chosen then, shall we? Let's start at the back. Adam, what are your memories of Artur Boruc?
Well, he was quite a character, that's for sure. I mean, you only got to look at his Saints career really to kind of get a measure of kind of how up and down he was. We could probably all remember that he came into the team and then a bit of a mixed time for the club for a little while, and then he got dropped after supposedly throwing a water bottle at the Saints fans who were having a bit of a pop at him behind the goal, which probably wasn't the smartest move he's ever made. Then he came back in again after a while, and he kind of cemented his place. And then he had the fairly average moment, shall we say, of getting conceding a goal to another goalkeeper, the famous Begovic goal after 13 seconds for Stoke, where he just pumped it up the pitch, and Boruc was kind of, I don't think he realised the game had kicked off, and the ball bounced over his head and went in. Then I just, following that up, he had the Cruyff turn against Arsenal, where unfortunately he didn't pull it off like Johan Cruyff, and Arsenal scored. And I think he broke his hand shortly after that and disappeared from the team, and kind of came back in again and was part of that Pochettino side that finished 8th, and then sort of just drifted off basically and left the club. So it was a pretty eventful, short stay for him really at Saints. It was only a few years, but he managed to pack in quite a lot, and I remember him being quite a character around the place as well. An unusual character, definitely, but kind of one of those guys who I think when he was on, and when he was off, he was off. Really, I think that sort of summed him up a little bit.
Yeah, Adam, I'm going to stick with you for our next player, which is Nathaniel Klein. So he was a pretty consistent performer for Saints for several years. So what did you make of his time at the club and his career since leaving?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. He definitely was very consistent at Saints. He arrived from Crystal Palace, and it was a really good signing for Saints, to be honest. He was kind of on an upward trajectory when he joined, and he continued that at Saints very much. It was a good move for him, I think. Some people, I think, questioned that move at the time, but actually it proved to be a very, very good one. He came into, obviously, a good team that allowed him to play with a great deal of freedom at right back as well. I mean, he was a very attacking minded right back, and he was very good for Saints for a long period of time. He kind of continued, I guess, if you look at his career, he continued the upward trajectory and got a move to Liverpool. And then I think it's easy to forget now when I think he's literally just been released by Liverpool because his contract has expired from when he signed from Saints. But for the first couple of years there, he was a real regular. I think at the end of the 2017-18 season, he played more games, and this is obviously Jurgen Klopp was in charge. He played more games than any other player for Liverpool. But he got injured. He fell out of the side. Alexander-Arnold came in at that point in time. And yeah, I mean, Klein's never got a sniff again, really. They kind of, when he was out for a long period, Alexander-Arnold had established himself. Klein just sort of faded away, really. I think that's very sad. It is sad because he's still only late 20s. So I guess for him, it's kind of a big decision now. What does he do now? He's obviously a free agent. He could go somewhere else. It depends on, I'm sure he's got plenty of money in the bank if he's been sensible. So it depends on his desire. And potentially his desire, if he wants to play every single week, to maybe even have to consider dropping down a division, which he may have to do because it's been a long time since he's been a regular. So he might get a berth at a Premier League club as sort of reserve right back. But if he really wants to play again, and I'd suggest at this stage of his career, having not played hardly at all in the last few years, that would be a very sensible move. He's got to have kind of the desire to want to do that. So I guess the ball's in his court for that one.
Dean, forgive me if I'm mistaken, but I don't think you ever played competitively alongside either Arta or Nathaniel. If that is the case, did you kind of ever come across them? And also just kind of alluding to what Adam's just said, he said he sort of faded away almost. What have you made of Nathaniel's career since leaving Saints?
Well, Klein actually came in the year I left Southampton. So when we got promoted to the Premier League, I had pre-season with him and the beginning of the season. So a bit like Adam touched on, when Klein signed, really, it was a little bit of a surprise signing because we were so strong in that department at right back. But had an excellent career, was very, very athletic, very, very strong, loads of energy, wanted to improve and listen as a young player coming into the squad. Very quiet when he came in, to be honest. Better in possession than I think people give him credit for. He doesn't look that pleasing on the eye, but he's good in possession. He keeps the ball well and he likes to attack. So he was a very, very good signing. And when I've come across him and played against him, he's always been a hard opponent. Not that I got out to the left wing that much to play against him, but no, from afar you could see he did very well. And he got his move to Liverpool. And I think, like Adam said, he was a very consistent performer for them. He was a regular. He played all the time, put in some excellent performances. And then he had them injuries, which, if you get injured as a player, it can really affect you. And I wouldn't judge him on his Liverpool career after his injuries because I think Liverpool just improved that much that he just couldn't keep up with it. And they became a better team, probably the best team in the country, one of the best teams in Europe. And that happens as a player. You kind of get left behind a little bit. He had a couple of loan moves that I don't think have quite worked out. But he's still young. He's still got a lot of football to play in himself, and he just needs to get back to playing regular first-team football, playing consistently, get his body up to the condition he needs to play at the highest level, because you do have to be physically so strong and so fit to play in the Premier League. And I think he'll be okay. So very, very good player. He's had a very good career, but I think there's still a lot left in him, and someone can pick him up on a free transfer will get an excellent signing.
Yeah, another fullback we've got in here is Ryan Bertrand, clearly a player with great ability, and I believe he's got a Champions League medal from his time with Chelsea, but he didn't seem to really be able to maintain his place in the side there, Adam. What do you make of his time at Southampton, and has he gone on to fulfil his potential?
Well, I mean, he's been a great signing, to be honest. He's been fantastic, in my opinion. I think he's done a really good job. Whether he's fulfilled his potential, I guess, is a slightly difficult question because coming through at Chelsea and being such a bright player, I would have said even a couple of years ago, in the back of Ryan's mind, I suspect he had still ambitions to maybe have another go at a really big club. And there has been interest in him. You know, there has been interest from at various times. Man United, Man City, Liverpool even have all kind of been in and around needing a left back, and he's been on the radar. None of that has ever quite come off, and so he's stuck with Saints. And probably realistically at this stage of his career, those moments have now passed. I think a new contract at Saints, and seeing out probably the best of his remaining career at Saints is probably the most realistic option now. So you can argue, has he fulfilled career potential or not? Don't know, but you can only take the breaks you're given as a player, I guess. And I can only say that at Saints, I think he's been a really, really good player for Saints. I think he's been excellent, real quality. Even in a couple of times when Saints have lacked a bit of quality, they've always had it in the left back position when Ryan's been playing. He has, as any player would, has come in for a bit of criticism from time to time. I think one or two people have at times questioned his attitude, but actually I would say overall he's done a great job for Saints. He's been a really, really good signing. And yeah, I think hopefully there are a few good more years to come from Ryan, because I think he's one of those guys. He's pretty consistent overall, and his level and seemingly his desire to want to play football hasn't waned. And if anything, I kind of get the impression that maybe the last year his desire has actually grown, and maybe that's just a sign of age and a sign of kind of realizing that he hasn't got huge amounts of road ahead of him. He's still got a good few years, I think, but kind of perhaps a lot of his career is behind him now, and it's time to make the most of his ability and his talent and everything he's worked hard for. And a really good player for Saints, in my opinion.
Well, Dean, let's talk about the man that makes up our five-a-side midfield, Adam Lallana. Tell us, what was he like as a person and as a player?
Well, as a person, really, really nice guy, very humble, family man, very well respected in the dressing room, very, very good company. But as a player, fantastic. Probably big bold statement for myself, because I played with some good players, but probably the best player I've ever played with his natural ability. His natural ability was on both feet. His balance, his agility, his vision was fantastic. But also he set the standard. He was a really, really good professional, and Adam touched on it previously. If you want to be a top player and play and get the best out of you have to work really hard, and Adam did that. He was one of the hardest working players in training. That's why he was made captain. One of his values, one of his abilities to lead by example, and had a really, really, successful Southampton career. He was a catalyst to everything, to the promotions, to Southampton doing so well in the Premier League, and just a pleasure to play with. Didn't enjoy playing against him in training, I must admit, because it would be a difficult morning. But no, an excellent player, and a really, really good person as well. So, it was a pleasure to play with Adam.
Now, Adam, the way Lallana left Saints maybe drew some criticism. What do you recall from his departure?
Yeah, I honestly, I feel really sorry for him. I genuinely do. And there's not many players that you feel like I genuinely feel sorry for him. But I do, because my personal opinion, he's been relatively unfairly tainted by the way his departure came about. I think there's a real sense that people feel like Saints have done a lot for this guy, and then he kind of did everything he could to stab the club in the back to get out the door to Liverpool. And I really don't think that's the case. I think people have bought into a picture of that's been painted by other people with vested interests to make it seem otherwise. And I don't think that's at all fair. And I don't feel like at that period of time, when, let's be fair, over a period of 2 or 3 years, Saints lost a lot of their best players. A lot of that fantastic promotion team went. Many of them went to Liverpool or to other big clubs. I don't think, honestly, that he did anything that I didn't see almost all the other players doing in the background, to be honest with you. And some of them have left and are lauded as heroes. and Adam Lallana left in a similar manner and is some sort of villain. I think that's really unfortunate, and I think what speaks volumes for him as a man as well was I was obviously at the Daily Echo when he left, and he phoned me up when it was confirmed and wanted to put a whole page advert, not just do an interview, but to buy an entire page of the Echo to put his own message to the fans, to say thank you and goodbye. That cost quite a bit of money for him to do that, and I can tell you that it was meticulous. He ridiculously meticulous. I think he did about 8 revisions of it before he was happy. That to want to do that, to have the desire to want to do that, really speaks a lot for him. And I just think, and for people to have just dismissed it so cynically, I genuinely think it's really sad, and I feel really sorry for him, because he should be remembered as a great player for Saints who did great things to help them get to where they are now. And I genuinely believe that a lot of Saints fans would treat him very, very unfairly. That's my opinion on his departure.
Yeah, that thank you was certainly a really nice touch there from Adam. Well, let's carry on rattling through this five-a-side team then. Let's move the chat on to Lee Barnard now. Dean, what were your memories of him, and what did he offer the team, and what can he offer our five-a-side?
Well, Barney was an excellent player for the club. When he came in, we were in League One, I think, and he came in, it was a January signing by Alan Pardew, and you could see within the first training session, I touched on it before, his finishing was excellent. Very, very good finisher, both feet, brave in the air, held the ball up very well, made very, very intelligent runs off the ball to get into good positions. Not the quickest, a nice guy, scored some really, really important goals in that promotion push from in the following season from League One to the Championship. Was a very, very important player and had a good partnership with Ricky Lambert. Obviously, he had that incident which didn't help him, and I think affected his career a little bit and affected his confidence as a person. But no, an excellent footballer, a really nice person again. When we had that success for that 2-3 seasons, there were so many good people in that dressing room with good values, good personalities, and he was one of them. But a really, really good player, and wish he just had more time in the club, and maybe he wishes he had a more of an opportunity in the Championship. But things happen in life and you learn from them. But no, a good player, and he did well for Southampton whenever he played.
Well, that's our five-a-side team for Bournemouth and Southampton all wrapped up. Let's go to socials now and take a look at what the fans are saying at home on Saints Live. Still plenty of comments in, plenty of positivity as usual. Saints fans predicting a big win on the South Coast today. Tubby on YouTube has said, I feel Alex McCarthy has improved a lot and has saved us on many occasions. I suppose joining the discussion we had earlier about Alex. Joe, thanks for your comment. He said Vestergaard has shown us his quality. He just needs to work on his consistency. Andy, hello, he's on YouTube. He said, I love South Coast football. The more teams in the Premier League, the better. Nice to have local rivalries. I love Saints with a passion, but I'd be so sad to see Bournemouth go down. I actually agree with you, Andy. Carol's also sent us a comment. She says, go Saints, watching from Central Coast of New South Wales, Australia. Hello to you. Harry has also joined us. He says the South Coast is ours. We've got a comment here from Mace on YouTube. Good afternoon. Good morning. Is it good morning? Good afternoon. It is good afternoon. It's a Sunday. I'm still a little bit tired. He says, strong team. We should get a win. And a comment here from John on Facebook. He says, let's go Saints, watching from Florida. So plenty of positivity as always, and it looks as though most people actually don't agree with Adam, and they're saying this is a derby.
Yeah, controversial maybe. Right, let's move the conversation on a little bit. We've waxed lyrical about Southampton's away form. They've actually had a club record of 8 wins from 18 games away. Now today is the last away game of the season. Adam, what have you made of Saints' away form, and would you like to see that continue clearly into next season?
Well, I mean, obviously the answer is yes. It would be great if it could continue. It might honestly be hard to continue because it's been so good. It is difficult. I mean, it's interesting because you wonder, you can't help but have that discussion of why are they so good away from home? Why have they struggled so much at home? What is it about the difference between playing home and away? Is it the way the team is set up? Are they a better counter-attacking team? Are they better at playing when there's that style? Is it the pressure of the fans being on them, or does that make no difference? Is it a combination of these things, or something else entirely? I mean, it's so hard to know, but I mean, they've been so good away from home, so competent. You feel much more confident for them when you watch them on the road than when you're at home. And I mean, I remember they've been like that for a few years, though. I mean, we can't think that this is just under Ralph. Yes, they've been exceptional away from home this year, but they have generally been a lot better away from home than at home, and that's really unfortunate because, of course, all right, it's okay at the moment when people can watch all the games, but most of the time, Saints supporters, the majority of Saints supporters, can only watch them really at St Mary's. So it is really unfortunate when the better performances are away from home. Can they continue it next season? I think it will be difficult to be this good again, but then I would counter that by saying I'm very optimistic that next season their home form will improve dramatically. So if their home form does improve dramatically and they can be even 3/4 as successful away from home as they have been this season, then they're on for a very, very good year.
Now we actually have a graphic for this. Only Liverpool, Man City and Chelsea have won more away games and taken more points away from home than Southampton. Wolves have the same number of points as us, but slightly better goal difference. Dean, we know we're good away from home, but does this really highlight just how exceptional we've been?
I think exactly that, because the teams you've mentioned are all in the Champions League places. You know, that you've got Liverpool and Man City, which is the top two, and Chelsea it's the top three. Chelsea are third at the moment. So, yes, it just shows how exceptional the record is. Not only the results, but the performances have been excellent as well. The way I like the way the manager approaches every game the same. He doesn't really change. He doesn't really adapt to it. He has his philosophy and thinks, right, this is the best way for my team, for my players to win the game, whether that's home or away. And it just seems as though it's been more effective away from home, maybe because the teams they play against are obviously the home team, so they'll be a bit more open, they'll be a bit more attacking. And when Southampton press so high and they can win the ball back quickly, or when the opposition are attacking, there's more spaces for players like Danny Ings and Redmond to be in one-on-one isolated positions so they can take players on and be more creative. That could be an effect. But that's an unbelievable record. And if Southampton next season can continue this, it's going to be difficult, and they can improve their home record, I think a top 10 finish even higher up could be expected of the team, and that could be their aim. So, but like Adam said, it's always difficult because once you get a good record, once you're identified as a good team and you win games, people recognise that and they probably prepare for you a little bit different. So, but no, a fantastic record, and the manager and the team should take plaudits for that.
Just a quick one to finish this topic then, gentlemen. Which of the 8 away performances or away wins have you been most impressed with? Adam, let's come to you first.
It might not sound like the most glamorous one, but actually Leicester in January, Saints won 2-1 at the King Power, and I think that was a big result because we all know what happened in the reverse fixture. If you've watched any of the Saints games on TV, you've heard it mentioned about 400 times in 90 minutes, every single time. So we don't need to dwell on that too much. But there was a lot of pressure on them going into that game. There was a lot of talk in the build-up, inevitably, about what had happened. There were obviously a few fears, I think, in the dressing room about kind of going out and facing the same team again. And they were in a better run of form then, for sure. But it still was a big pressure occasion for them. And the sort of scenes of jubilation and celebration, it was like after the game when they won, it was kind of like it was the last game of the season and they'd won to stay up, or they'd qualified for Europe or something like that. But I think that was just a mark of the team having said to themselves, we have got to do what we can to put right what went wrong so spectacularly previously. They put themselves under a lot of pressure, and that day they turned up, and they really, really took it to a very good Leicester team who are having an exceptional season and who've got some very good players, and they won that game. And I think that for them, that exercised a lot of the demons that they had from the match earlier in the season. So for me, that was a really impressive win because they dealt with a lot of pressure mentally as much as anything else.
Dean, which one would you choose quickly?
Well, I'd agree with Adam. Obviously, the Leicester result was so important for the mental side of the game. It would be a lasting memory in the players and the managers' minds of that defeat 9-0 at home. And as a player, obviously you have huge pride, so you want to put that right. And the players winning that game would be just shows the mentality of the group and the personality of the group, and it's just a huge win. But also, I think Adam touched on it in our last show, the win against Brighton earlier on in the season, because maybe there was some expectation for Ralph and the team to start the season well and to have a more successful season. Hadn't started the season too well, so to go to Brighton and win 2-0 to kickstart the season and to get your first away win is always so important. So Brighton and Leicester were big performances.
I was actually in the stands for that Leicester game, and I've got to say the favourite part for me was when they played the highlights just before kick-off of that 9-0 defeat, and I thought, karma's coming back around here, not today. So that win was certainly even sweeter. Right, let's go back to our social channels, take a look at what you guys are saying at home. Thanks to everyone that's joining us and sending us in your thoughts on Saints Live. We have a comment here from John Jim Reeves on Facebook. He's going for a draw today. He says he fancies a 3-3. Ken Childs, also on Facebook, says, signing in from Bonnie, Scotland. Come on, you Reds. 3 points is a must, even though it might damage our neighbours. We march on. Ken taking no prisoners there. Richard, also on Facebook, hello. He said, I'd like a win, so we have revenge for the defeat earlier this season, but he's expecting a draw. And a comment here from Bobby Mack. Good afternoon. He's on YouTube. He says, watching from Dublin. Come on, lads.
Yeah, we've not got long left, but it'd be rude not to talk about today's fixture. The last one, the reverse at St Mary's, was maybe one to forget. A 3-1 win to Bournemouth there. Adam, let's start with you. What have you made of both sides' fortunes since that day?
Well, I mean, they've obviously ultimately ended up going in opposite directions. Not immediately, but in time, over time, to come to the point where we are today, where Saints are guaranteed, I think, to finish between 11th and 14th and likely to be 11th or 12th, probably, I would say. Bournemouth are, before this game, look fairly likely that they will get relegated. They're not down, but they've definitely got a hard job on their hands now to survive. So, I mean, in terms of, is it a surprise? No, not really. I don't feel it is, because I felt Saints were always a better team than a relegation team. They just needed to find a way to get themselves out of that downward momentum and out of that mindset, which they did. Bournemouth have been unlucky with a few injuries along the way. They've also made some signings in the last couple of years, some big signings. Not all of them have worked out particularly well. And I think that Bournemouth were always going to come to a point where they were going to have a season or two where they were going to struggle, because let's be honest, since they've got up, they've kind of managed to avoid getting in too many last ditch dogfights where they're really struggling with 1 or 2 games to go. They kind of have just about kept themselves out of that, and I felt that it's sort of been inevitable that they were going to have a season where they were going to have a downturn, and it was how they would be able to handle that. And thus far, it's obviously not going their way, but I mean, they've just got to believe now, 2 games to go, that they can get 6 points. This one, and then they've got Everton away on the last day. They've just got to try and do everything they can to get 6 points and hope that that's enough. Their fate isn't entirely in their own hands, but I would imagine, given Watford, kind of the other team really that are on the fringes, I think they've got to play Man City and Arsenal, which are 2 very, very hard fixtures to finish the season. If Bournemouth can get the points on the board, then they still have a fighting chance. So that they've just got to go for it, really, I think, from now on.
Dean, what kind of game are you expecting here? Because Bournemouth have shown a bit of grit of late. You were at their last home game, their 4-1 win over Leicester. What did you make of them that day, and how do you think they'll perform today?
Well, obviously, it's a huge game for Bournemouth. It's a very important game for Bournemouth. It's a great game for Southampton because they go into a great form. They can be relaxed. They're going into a so-called derby with a team that they could almost relegate them today. So, first of all, it's a very important game. Yes, I was at the game for Bournemouth v Leicester, and if I'm honest, it was not a normal Bournemouth performance. They're usually very comfortable, very confident in possession, try to play through the thirds. They looked a team that was lacking huge confidence, lacking belief. They were going from back to front very, very quickly, trying to hit the strikers early, almost out of fear to get the ball away from their goal in the first half especially, and Leicester should have been 2-3 up. But then with a bit of luck and a bit of fortune second half, they scored a couple of goals. And it just gives them that little bit of belief and that little bit of luck that maybe they feel as though they haven't had this season. So could it be a turning point for them? They've got 2 games left. Could they get 2 wins that maybe gets them out of it? I don't know. I think it will just be a tough call for them because I think Southampton away from home, with the energy they play with the desire they play with to finish the season well, and the goal threat in Danny Ings and now Shane Long, I can only see Southampton winning this just for the fact that I think Bournemouth are just very, very flat, and I include the manager and the players in that. I just think it's a flat club that I think they're going to get relegated.
Adam, I know you hate this phrase, but is it a must-win today for Bournemouth?
Well, that's a stitch up. Everybody knows I don't like the phrase "must win," but I'll just say this: it's a very important game for Bournemouth. They don't have a lot of margin here. I mean, again, you look at those Watford results. Would 4 points be enough for Bournemouth? I mean, they can't rely on their goal difference, so 3 won't be enough. Would 4 be enough? Maybe, just. But you're really keeping your fingers crossed if you're going for 4 points. So they can't afford to lose, but I kind of think they've got to go for a win. They can't afford to sort of sit back and put in a performance like Dean described. He witnessed from them recently, because I think if they do that, they'll probably lose comfortably. And also I think from their point of view, you at least want to feel like you're giving it a go. If it you come to this point, there's nothing you can do about the 36 games that have gone. But who Watford have got to play. At least make them do something to stay up. At least challenge them to say, you have got to get a point out of Man City and Arsenal minimum to stay up. Don't let them stay up by virtue of not winning another game. So you've got to go out, leave everything on the pitch and just go for it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But at least you can hold your head high and know that you gave it everything you've got. If you go out there and tactically as a manager or as a player, you're really flat and you're really scared and nervous, and you don't give it a go at doing the things that you've done in the last few years that have been successful because you can't mentally get your head around it, then that's, I think, when you'll have real regrets. So I think from Bournemouth's point of view, it's absolutely crucial, but more importantly, it's crucial how they approach the game, and that will determine, I think, whether they actually have a chance to get anything from it or not.
Dean, we know that Southampton's form since the restart has been really impressive, but after the draw on Thursday, would it be disappointing not to come away with something here, or can you kind of forgive a bit of complacency given results prior to that?
I think there will be some disappointment, to be honest. I think that's just the standard the club's set now, and the managers put into the players that I like to think that the manager now judges the players on their performance, and he thinks if they perform well, the results will come, and that's what's happened. So the manager will want them to finish the season really, really strongly, want them to continue the momentum, and they'll go for the win because that's just the way the manager has got the players playing. He's got them breeding that mentality that they can win every game. There's a belief within the team. There's a happiness within the environment of the players. So when you have that combination, you want to win games because you just love it. You enjoy going into training every day. You enjoy turning up to the matches. You enjoy playing with your colleagues. And I think that at that stage now where they want to win every game for themselves and for the manager and for the club, And when you have that, you've got a chance of being really successful. So I don't think there'll be any complacency due to the fact that I just don't believe the manager will allow it.
Well, let's have the fans have their final say here on Saints Live before we depart company before kickoff. Liam on Facebook, good afternoon to you. He said he's watching from Melbourne, Australia, and he says, come on, Saints. Graham, thanks for joining us. He says Saints will win 3-1 from a Saints fan from the Isle of Wight, now living in Virginia, USA. Cody is joining us on YouTube. He says he's hoping to see a Saints away win. And Chris is also watching on YouTube. He says this is a chance for Danny Ings to shine and catch up with Vardy for the Golden Boot.
Yeah,
That'd be
let's
nice.
hope so. So before we go get comfy and watch the match, can I get some...
Well, I'm going to go for a Southampton win. I think it'll be another good away performance. I think Bournemouth will have a spell within the game, whether that's early on or whether that's, a period in the second half. But I just think Southampton are too full of confidence, too strong for Bournemouth, who are playing with fear. So I'm going to go 2-1 to Southampton.
Yeah, I kind of agree with everything Dean said. I'd like to think it's going to be a more competitive game, and maybe Bournemouth will surprise us. And I guess given the situation they're in a way, perhaps we shouldn't be shocked if they actually come out and perform a lot better than we think, because I think they know they're basically drinking in last chance saloon now. But I still think the way Saints are playing, it's a really, really tough ask for them. And if Saints were to score early, I think it's going to be really, really hard to see Bournemouth coming back. So I am going to go for Saints. I think 2-0.
Dean, Adam, thanks for your company as always. But now our attention turns to kick-off. The Cherries are running out of time to avoid a first ever relegation from the Premier League. Today's game does get underway at 2 p.m. and we'll all be back after the final whistle for another Saints Live. See you then.